I thought it would be nice to stay here until the baby was born when my half-sister, Raylon, suddenly showed up at our door. Of course, that's a great idea. Stay as long as you need, my husband, Atlas, said with a smile, without even looking at me. I stood frozen, confused, watching the interaction between Atlas and Raylon. Their closeness seemed more like a romantic bond than family. Atlas, what's going on? I asked, my voice shaking. You're just jealous of your sweet little sister, he replied with a smug grin, brushing me off. Their chatter was giving me a headache, but when they walked to the bedroom, hand in hand, a deep sense of dread washed over me. I knew something was off. I'm Sienna Adams, a 46-year-old housewife. Before I married, I worked hard, but that was over 20 years ago. Now, I find joy in my daily tasks and enjoying coffee, just your typical middle-aged woman. But I have a hobby, investing. I've been doing it since before I was married, and lately, I've been making good money, treating myself to luxurious hotel brunches and spa visits, living an elegant life. My husband, Atlas, is 40 and works as a salesman. He's gained weight recently and has developed an unpleasant odor, but he's charming with words, even though he's grown large. I love him. I do wish he'd lose some weight for his health, but there's something endearing about him, so I never pushed him into dieting. We have a daughter, Rachel. She takes after Atlas, slim and beautiful, almost model-like. She excels in both academics and sports, even reaching national competitions. She's humble and hardworking, a real gem. It feels like we, the geese, gave birth to a swan. We're often told that we're overly protective of her. Atlas does have a thing for younger women, but he married me, an older woman, and values our family, so I thought the occasional wandering glance was just inevitable. We lived in a condo we bought when Rachel was born, but it was aging, and they were planning to raise the maintenance fees. Around the same time, Rachel decided to move into an apartment near her college. One of my relatives also offered us a vacant house, which we decided to renovate and move into. But who would have thought this change would cause tension between Atlas and me, when things had been so smooth until then? The condo had 4 bedrooms, including a guest room, but the new house had only 2. It was a big adjustment, but we saw it as an opportunity to simplify. One of the rooms serves as a study and guest room, and we could divide it if Rachel ever came back. Atlas began coming home late from work dinners, always finding reasons to go out, even on weekends. Sleeping next to him, smelling of alcohol and cigarettes, became unbearable, even though we slept in separate beds because of it. Since we moved, I'd been sleeping in the study. When it was time to send moving announcements, I took it upon myself to send letters to his family and relatives, as Atlas isn't great at that sort of thing. Since my parents passed away, I just sent a brief note to my mother's side of the family. I haven't contacted any relatives from my father's side because of Raylon. Raylon is my half-sister, 14 years younger than me. When I was in 7th grade, my mother died, and my father remarried 6 months later. Raylon was already 2 years old. I assumed my father's new wife had children too, but about 5 years later, both my father and his wife died in an accident. At the funeral, relatives revealed that my father and his second wife had been childhood friends, and everyone thought they'd end up together. However, it turned out that my mother had introduced them, and my father felt obligated to marry her, leaving his childhood friend behind. Learning that my dad had a child with his second wife was a huge shock. At every family gathering, Raylon got special treatment, her favorite foods, brand-name clothes, the biggest room, and immediate attention for any request. Meanwhile, I did all the chores, worked part-time jobs, and had to hand over all my earnings. I had a tiny storage room under the stairs and had to beg for even the most basic necessities. By the time Raylon was in elementary school, she had heard about my mom from relatives and started looking down on me. I worked hard, saved up, and finally moved out. I couldn't harbor any warm feelings for Raylon, and I never told her about my marriage or my child. A few weeks after moving, I was having tea when the doorbell rang. A man's voice said, "Delivery," and when I opened the door, I was left speechless. "Oh, Raylon, why are you here?" I asked in surprise. "Hi, sis, long time no see, just thought I'd stop by," Raylon said casually, wearing a hat. She wasn't a delivery person but my half-sister. Without waiting for a response, she walked past me and sat on the couch. I rushed to follow her, stood in front of her, and looked down. "I figured you wouldn't open the door if you knew it was me, so I used a recorded voice," Raylon said with a smirk. "That's really low," I replied, my frustration rising. "Geez, you're scary," she mocked, putting on a fake frightened act. but the smirk on her face gave her away. I just came to visit, Raylon said carelessly, her words feeling empty. Just leave. I want nothing to do with you, I snapped, my voice sharp with disdain. Well, too bad. I was planning to stay here, she shot back, her grin infuriating. Raylan's audacious response only made my anger boil. Barely audible, I muttered, typical of a kleptomaniac's daughter. The venom in my voice must have been obvious because her smile faltered, and my anger surged. Get out. I never want to see your face again, I shouted, my patience completely gone. What's all the noise about? People outside can hear you, Atlas said, walking into the room. I was stunned by his sudden return at such an odd hour. As I tried to explain, Raylon stood up and walked over to him, linking her arm with his. Atlas didn't seem bothered by it. In fact, he looked pleased. Oh, Atlas, here, my sister chimed sweetly. Welcome, Raylon, Atlas said warmly. My sister was being mean. I thought I'd stay here until the baby's born. Is that okay? Raylon added. Of course, you're welcome to stay as long as you like, Atlas replied casually. I stood there in shock, silently observing the exchange between Atlas and Raylon. The intimacy they shared felt more like lovers than siblings-in-law. Atlas, what's going on? I managed to ask, my voice trembling. You're just jealous of your cute little sister, he dismissed me with a smirk, brushing me off. We have a spare bed in the guest room, you can stay there, Atlas offered without a second thought. Oh, that's so sweet of you, Raylon replied, leaping at the opportunity, but I'd feel much safer sharing a room with you instead. Their sugary conversation gave me a headache. As they headed to the bedroom, arm in arm, I felt a sense of dread. Knowing something was wrong, I peeked into the room. After a few minutes of watching through the crack in the door, I saw them in an intimate embrace, living out a fantasy that seemed to have come true for Raylon. The baby is so happy, living with Daddy, Raylon exclaimed, making a shocking revelation that Atlas was the father as they kissed. I stood there in shock, tears streaming down my face as I witnessed the betrayal. From that moment on, I was treated like an invisible servant in my own home. I silently complied, but I began gathering evidence, quietly planning for a divorce. One day, Raylon, in her typical arrogant manner, declared, "Leave the room, I need space, I'm pregnant." After all, her cruel tone was a stark contrast to the gentle demeanor usually associated with expectant mothers. I looked at Atlas, hoping for support. Aren't you going to say anything? I asked, voice trembling. She's right, he said, dismissing me without a second thought and siding with Raylon. Any remaining affection I had for him evaporated in that moment. Still, a tinge of sadness lingered as I watched Atlas take Raylon's hand, sealing my decision to leave. I'm leaving tomorrow, I announced. Atlas's face brightened, as if my departure was a relief. Great, maybe you should find somewhere else to stay tonight, he suggested, sounding indifferent. This is now my and Raylon's home, he added, making it final. I nodded, leaving them to laugh together as they basked in their newfound freedom. Outside, a smile crept onto my face as I embraced the prospect of a fresh start. I checked into a hotel that night, and the next day, I arranged for a moving company and visited City Hall to start my new life. My heart was filled with excitement as I made plans, and despite the sadness, I felt a sense of liberation. But when I returned home, I was met with a confusing sight. The moving company was already there, and the house seemed empty. A box sat on the floor, containing a few of my belongings carelessly tossed inside. To make matters worse, at the bottom of the box lay Atlas's wedding ring. My anger flared as I took in the disarray of the house, evidence of Atlas and Raylon's affair scattered throughout. The movers continued packing their things, and on the dining table, I found a note. It was from Atlas and Raylon, announcing their 6-day trip abroad and stating that the house needed to be cleaned. The note also mentioned that the divorce would be finalized upon their return. I was stunned by his selfishness, but his absence made it easier to execute my plans. Relieved that the movers packed my things for me, I left the wedding ring on the kitchen counter before leaving. After some thought, I bought a small one-bedroom apartment near Rachel's university. It was cozy and perfect for the solitude I needed. When Atlas and Raylon were due to return, my phone rang incessantly. I didn't need to check. I knew it was them. I answered with a casual, "Hello. What the hell is going on?" Atlas's frantic voice blasted through the phone. "What do you mean, what's going on?" I replied, unfazed. "The house, it's gone. What did you do?" he demanded, his anger palpable. I couldn't help but laugh. Well, it was my house, And if I'm not living there, why keep it? But we were living there, he shouted, furious. Don't worry, I said coolly, everything's in a storage unit. I'll send you the location and access code. You can't do this, he yelled, bring back the house. It was in my name, Atlas, and the money to build it came from my investments, not a dime from you, I reminded him. Atlas's mind seemed to click as he remembered his complete lack of involvement in the house's construction. Raylan's pregnant, and she's in a tough situation, Atlas pleaded, attempting to manipulate me. I've known about your affair with Raylan since she barged into our house, I said calmly, and I've been collecting evidence, recordings from a high-end baby monitor. I have proof of everything, even in complete darkness. Atlas fell silent, his mind racing. I continued, the mailbox might have something for you. He rushed to check, finding certified mail. What's this about? He asked, his discomfort evident. It's about payment, I said with a smile. There's one for you too. Atlas's desperate pleas to speak with his lawyer went unanswered as I ended the call. His repeated attempts to reach me were ignored, and after about an hour, he gave up. The next morning, I received a call from a relative on my new phone, likely obtained from Raylan. You owe Raylan an apology, the relative demanded. She's pregnant and deserves a new house as compensation. I stood firm. Apologize to the woman who had an affair with my husband? Never. If anyone owes an apology and compensation, it's Raylan. The relative persisted, but I remained resolute. Raylan's actions are just as disgraceful as her father's betrayal. Let her stay out of my life. After hanging up, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. I immediately contacted my lawyer to take action. The thirst for justice consumed me until I saw their dumbfounded faces during our lawyers' meeting. Raylan, Atlas's mistress, looked utterly confused, while Atlas wore a scowl, devoid of any remorse. Here are the divorce papers, I said, placing them on the table. Then, I laid out another set. And here's the marriage license. If you both sign, I'll reduce the compensation. Atlas grabbed the pen immediately. Fine, he muttered, signing his name. Raylan smirked and followed suit, placing the signed documents in a folder. I flashed them a victorious smile. I'll submit these to the county office, I said. Raylan looked up, confused. Wait, what? The divorce was finalized in mediation yesterday, I explained. Maybe you'd know that if you hadn't ignored the multiple summons. As the realization sank in, I dropped another bombshell. Oh, and Atlas, you might want to reconsider your paternity claim. There's a possibility you'll have to deny your relationship with the unborn child. Raylan's face drained of color, and Atlas looked shaken. Between compensation and child support for someone else's baby, I added with a shrug, good luck. Suddenly, Atlas shifted his approach. What about Rachel? We need to work this out for her, he suggested, changing his tune. Just then, the door to the lawyer's office swung open, and Rachel walked in. Don't use me as an excuse, Dad, she said coldly, her words cutting through the air. Atlas froze, stunned by her words. Turning to me, Rachel added, I've made up my mind. I'm staying with Mom. Raylan's face twisted with fury as Rachel insulted her, calling her that loose woman. Raylan had no retort as Rachel's words hit their mark. I delivered my final blow. By the way, Atlas, I said with a smirk, you're broke. The house and the car, they're mine. Raylan's little scheme to take my money has failed. Raylan stared at me in disbelief as I walked out of the office with my lawyer and Rachel. They were left to face their new reality. That evening, I shared a quiet dinner with Rachel. It was a peaceful moment, just the two of us. I filed for divorce, and soon after, Raylan's waiting period for remarriage passed, and she and Atlas submitted their marriage license. The witness section bore my signature and that of Raylan's ex-husband, who had shared vital information with me. News quickly spread about Atlas's misuse of travel expenses for secret getaways with Raylan, leading to his firing. He now struggled with part-time jobs, while Raylan, who was raising the child, faced financial troubles after being abandoned by her boyfriend. Her attempt to destroy my family had backfired spectacularly. Meanwhile, Rachel thrived in college, and I lived a tranquil life, supported by my investments. Unexpectedly, I found myself growing closer to Raylan's ex-husband, who now affectionately called me Sai. Recently, he reached out, saying, we need to talk, it's important. As I sat before my vanity, flushed with curiosity and anticipation, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. What lay ahead? Thanks for watching, and see you again in the next video. Stay stunned.